My name is Austin Pierce, and I'm 68 years old. My own son-in-law looked me straight in the eyes and told me I was not welcome at Thanksgiving, to stay away like I didn't matter, like I was some stranger off the street who had no business being around his table, around my own daughter, around the grandchildren I helped bring into this world. I didn't argue, I didn't raise my voice, I didn't beg or plead or try to reason with him. I just smiled, a small knowing smile, cut off every single dollar he depended on, and disappeared into the night. Before I tell you what happened by the next morning, before I walk you through how his entire world came crashing down around him in less than 12 hours, make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and comment below telling me where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't just my story. It's a lesson about respect, about dignity, and about what happens when someone mistakes kindness for weakness. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. I spent 43 years building a life from nothing, 43 years of waking up before dawn, of calloused hands and aching backs, of missed weekends and postponed vacations. I worked in construction first, then moved into real estate development, then into property management. I made smart investments when others were spending frivolously. I saved when saving wasn't popular. I built something solid, something real, something that would last. I'm not a wealthy man by billionaire standards, but I'm comfortable, more than comfortable, if I'm being honest. I own my home outright, a modest 3-bedroom house on 2 acres of land that I bought 30 years ago and paid off 15 years early. I have rental properties that provide steady income. I have investments that have grown consistently over the decades. I have savings that could carry me through retirement twice over. But I never flaunted it, never drove fancy cars or wore expensive watches or took lavish vacations to places I couldn't pronounce. I lived quietly, modestly, the same way I always had, because money to me was never about showing off. It was about security, about freedom, about being able to help the people I loved when they needed it most. And I built all of this because I believed in family. I believed in taking care of your own. I believed that when you have the means to help, you help. No questions asked, no strings attached, no scorekeeping or ledgers or IOUs hanging over anyone's head. That belief, that bone-deep conviction about family and loyalty is what led me to where I am now, to this moment, to this story I'm about to tell you. I have one daughter. Her name is Catherine, and she's 34 years old. From the moment she was born, she was the center of my universe. Her mother, my late wife, Helen, and I poured everything we had into raising her right. We taught her values. We showed her what hard work looked like. We made sure she understood that respect and kindness weren't optional, they were foundational. Catherine grew up to be a beautiful, intelligent, compassionate woman. She became a teacher, elementary school, 3rd grade, and she loved those kids like they were her own. She had a gift for it, for making learning fun, for seeing potential in children that others overlooked. I was so proud of her, so incredibly proud. Then, about 7 years ago, she met him. Brandon Caldwell. I'll never forget the first time Catherine brought him home. He was 29 at the time, worked in sales for a tech company, drove a leased BMW that he clearly couldn't afford, wore suits that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. He had that polished look, the styled hair, the whitened teeth, the practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes. He shook my hand firmly, looked me in the eye, called me sir, said all the right things, complimented the house, asked about my work, laughed at my jokes. On the surface, he seemed fine, acceptable, the kind of man who knew how to make a good first impression. But there was something underneath, something I couldn't quite name at first, a calculation behind his eyes, a way he looked around my home, assessing, cataloging, placing a value on everything he saw, a subtle condescension in his tone when he asked about my little rental business, as if managing properties was somehow beneath him, despite the fact that my little rental business was probably worth more than he'd earn in a decade. I said nothing. Catherine was happy, glowing in that way women glow when they're newly in love, and I wasn't going to be the father who criticized her choices or drove a wedge between us over a feeling, a vague sense of unease that I couldn't quite articulate. So I smiled and welcomed him into our lives. They dated for a year, got engaged, got married in a ceremony that cost $43,000, a ceremony that I paid for without complaint because it was what Catherine wanted, and I wanted my daughter to have the wedding of her dreams. Brandon's parents contributed nothing. His father was absent, his mother was on her third marriage and living off alimony, but Brandon didn't see that as a problem. He simply expected that I would cover it, and I did. After the wedding, they moved into an apartment, a nice two-bedroom in a trendy part of town with granite counters and stainless steel appliances and a monthly rent that would have made my younger self faint. Brandon's salary was decent, but not nearly enough to cover their lifestyle. Catherine's teacher salary certainly wasn't helping. They were drowning financially within 6 months. That's when I stepped in. I didn't make a big announcement. I just quietly started helping, paid their rent directly to the landlord, covered their car payments, made sure their utilities stayed on, bought groceries and dropped them off, acted like it was no big deal, like I was just being a thoughtful father who happened to have some extra food lying around. When Catherine got pregnant with their first child, my grandson, Tyler, I helped even more. Bought the crib, the stroller, the car seat, all the equipment new parents need. When Tyler was born, I paid the hospital bills that their insurance didn't cover. Set up a college fund in his name that I contributed to monthly. 2 years later, when their second child, my granddaughter Grace, was born, I did it all again. By this point, they'd moved from the apartment into a house, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial with a 2-car garage and a backyard perfect for children. Brandon told everyone at the housewarming party that he'd finally made it, that his hard work and smart investing had paid off, that he was proud to provide this home for his family. He never mentioned that I'd provided the down payment, $60,000, handed over without ceremony or expectation of repayment. He never mentioned that I was covering the mortgage payment every single month, sending the money directly to the bank so Catherine and Brandon never even saw it leave their account. They just knew somehow that their mortgage was always paid on time, that they never had to worry about it. He never mentioned that I paid for the furniture, the appliances, the landscaping, the security system, the property taxes, the homeowner's insurance. He never mentioned any of it because I never told him to, because I didn't help for recognition or gratitude or public acknowledgement. I helped because that's what family does. That's what fathers do for their daughters, what grandfathers do for their grandchildren. But Brandon took my silence as confirmation of his own success. He truly believed that his life, his house, his lifestyle was all his own doing. He looked around at everything he had and felt pride, felt accomplished, felt superior. And as the years went on, as my quiet support continued month after month, year after year, something in Brandon changed. Or maybe it didn't change. Maybe it was always there, and I just finally started seeing it clearly. The disrespect began small, subtle, easy to dismiss or explain away. He stopped saying thank you when I brought gifts for the kids, just nodded, put them aside, moved on to the next topic. When I'd visit, he'd barely look up from his phone, would grunt responses to my questions, would cut me off mid-sentence to take calls that weren't urgent, leaving me sitting there in his living room, the living room I'd furnished, while he paced and talked about deals and clients and numbers. Then came the rules. We need you to call before you come over, Austin. We have a schedule with the kids, and unexpected visits are disruptive. We are trying to establish boundaries, Austin. The kids need consistency, not a revolving door of visitors. We'd prefer if you didn't give the kids sugar when you visit. We have dietary guidelines we're following. Rules. Boundaries, guidelines, all perfectly reasonable on the surface, all delivered in that same polished tone Brandon used when he was trying to sound professional and authoritative. But underneath, the message was clear. You are not in charge here. You don't get to just show up. You exist in our lives on our terms, when we allow it, how we allow it. Catherine would apologize afterward, make excuses. He's just stressed about work. He's worried about being a good father. He's trying to create structure for the kids, always defending him, always smoothing things over, always asking me to understand, to be patient, to give him grace. And I did, because she was my daughter and I loved her, and I didn't want to create conflict or force her to choose sides. But the disrespect kept escalating. Brandon started making decisions about the kids without consulting us, or rather, without consulting me. Would plan family vacations and forget to mention them until the day before they were leaving. Would schedule events during times he knew I was available, then act surprised when I showed up, as if my presence was an inconvenience he hadn't anticipated. At Tyler's 6th birthday party, I arrived with presents, a bicycle I'd spent weeks researching to find the perfect one, along with a helmet and safety gear. I'd wrapped everything carefully, written a card telling my grandson how proud I was of him, how much I loved watching him grow. Brandon took the presents from me at the door, barely glanced at them, and said, "You didn't need to do this. We already got him a bike. Guess now he'll have two." He didn't say it kindly, didn't say it with appreciation or gratitude, said it like I'd created a problem, like I'd failed to coordinate properly, like I was out of touch and excessive. Then he set my gifts aside, not with the other presents, but in a corner by the door, separate and forgotten, and walked away without another word. I stood there in the entryway of the house I was paying for, holding a card my grandson would never read, watching other parents and children celebrate a birthday party I wasn't truly welcome at. Catherine found me a few minutes later, apologized quietly, explained that Brandon was overwhelmed with party planning, that he didn't mean to be rude, that she'd make sure Tyler opened my presents and understood they were from Grandpa. I nodded, smiled, told her it was fine. But it wasn't fine. It was the opposite of fine. It was the moment I started seeing everything clearly, without the filter of hope or denial or desperate love for my daughter. This man who owed his entire lifestyle to me, had looked at a gift for his son, a gift from the child's grandfather, and treated it like garbage. The breaking point came 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. I was at their house, visiting on a Sunday afternoon. Catherine had invited me for dinner, pot roast, she'd said, the way I liked it, with potatoes and carrots and fresh bread. I'd brought wine and flowers and a new book for Grace, who was learning to read and obsessed with stories about animals. Brandon was in the living room when I arrived, watching football. He didn't get up, didn't say hello, just glanced over, gave a slight nod, and turned back to the television. I went to the kitchen where Catherine was cooking. We talked while she prepared dinner, catching up on her week, the kids' activities, her students at school. She seemed tired, more than tired, worn down, like she was carrying weight she couldn't name. When dinner was ready, we all sat down at the table. The kids were excited, talking over each other about school and friends and upcoming holidays. I was asking Tyler about his soccer team, listening to him describe a goal he'd almost scored when Brandon interrupted. "Austin, we need to talk about Thanksgiving." His tone was flat, businesslike, the same tone he probably used when negotiating contracts or firing employees. I turned to him, "Sure, what about it?" "We are doing things differently this year. Catherine's mother-in-law, my mom, is coming. She's bringing her new husband. We're also having some friends over. The house is going to be full, and we're trying to keep things manageable." I waited, didn't understand yet where this was going. Brandon continued, not quite meeting my eyes. "We've decided it would be best if you sat this one out. Maybe we can do a separate thing with you the weekend after, just the 5 of us, more intimate." The words hung in the air. I looked at Catherine. She was staring at her plate, fork frozen halfway to her mouth, face pale. "I'm sorry," I said slowly, carefully, making sure I'd heard correctly. "Are you saying I'm not invited to Thanksgiving?" "It's not about being invited or not invited," Brandon said, his tone taking on that edge of impatience, like I was being deliberately difficult. "It's about space and logistics. We can only fit so many people comfortably. We are prioritizing close family and friends this year." Close family. I am his children's grandfather. I am Catherine's father. And this man sitting in a house I paid for, eating food purchased with money I provided, was telling me I wasn't close family. "Catherine," I said quietly, looking at my daughter, Is this what you want? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Her eyes were shining with unshed tears. Daddy, it's complicated. Maybe it would be easier this year if I stayed away. I finished for her. She didn't confirm, didn't deny. Just sat there, torn and miserable, unable to stand up for me, unable to tell her husband that he was wrong, that his decision was cruel and unacceptable. Brandon, satisfied that the conversation was over, went back to eating his pot roast. My pot roast. The pot roast my daughter had cooked in a kitchen I'd equipped, in a house I'd provided. You know what? I said, setting down my napkin. My voice was calm, steady, no anger, no pain, not yet, just cold, crystalline clarity. That's fine, Brandon, I understand completely. I stood up, kissed Grace on the head, ruffled Tyler's hair. They looked confused, worried, but I smiled at them reassuringly. Catherine, thank you for dinner. It was delicious. I'm going to head out now. Dad, you don't have to, she started. I do, I said gently. I really do. I walked out of that house, got in my car, and drove home through streets blurred by tears I refused to let fall until I was safely alone. The drive felt endless. Every mile stretched into eternity. Every red light was a mockery. Every Christmas decoration already hanging in yards and windows felt like a cruel reminder of the holiday I'd just been excluded from. When I finally pulled into my driveway, turned off the engine, and sat in the darkness of my garage, the weight of everything crashed down on me. 7 years of quiet support, 7 years of making sure my daughter and grandchildren had everything they needed. 7 years of watching this man take credit for a life he didn't build, couldn't afford, would never have achieved on his own. And now he'd looked me in the eyes and told me I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving. The pain was unlike anything I'd felt since Helen died. It was a hollowness, a void opening up in my chest where love and hope and family used to live. I'd sacrificed so much, asked for so little. And this was my reward: dismissal, disrespect, exclusion from the people I loved most in the world. I sat in that dark garage for almost an hour, wrestling with rage and heartbreak, with the urge to storm back over there and tell Brandon exactly what I thought of him, exactly what he owed me, exactly how his entire comfortable existence was built on my generosity. But then something shifted. The anger began to cool. The pain began to crystallize into something harder, sharper, more purposeful. I realized something important in that moment. I didn't need to yell, didn't need to explain, didn't need to make Brandon understand or appreciate what I'd done for him. I just needed to stop doing it. The thought was liberating, empowering. For 7 years, I'd played a game where I pretended my help was invisible, where I acted like Brandon's success was his own, where I absorbed disrespect for the sake of keeping peace. But what had that peace cost me? My dignity, my self-respect, my place at my own daughter's table on Thanksgiving. No more. I wasn't going to argue with Brandon or try to change his mind or guilt-trip Catherine into standing up for me. I wasn't going to create drama or make threats or demand apologies. I was simply going to remove myself and my support from the equation. Let's see how well Brandon's world held together when the foundation disappeared. I went inside, made myself a cup of coffee, and sat down at my computer. It was nearly 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, but I was wide awake, energized by purpose. I started with the mortgage, logged into my bank account, found the automatic payment I'd set up years ago to go directly to Brandon and Catherine's mortgage company, canceled it, just like that. One click, and the monthly payment that had kept them in their house for the past 5 years was gone. Then I pulled up the spreadsheet where I tracked all my payments. Everything I'd been covering for them, laid out in neat columns: mortgage, utilities, car payments, insurance, property taxes, homeowners association fees, even their family cell phone plan. 14 separate monthly expenses totaling just over $4,700 per month. $56,400 per year for 5 years. I'd given them over $280,000, not counting the down payment, the furniture, the gifts, the vacations I'd paid for, the college funds I'd established. And Brandon had told me I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving. I went through each account methodically, canceling automatic payments, removing saved payment methods, revoking authorization for charges. The credit card I'd given Catherine for emergencies, which Brandon had used regularly for everything from restaurant meals to new golf clubs, I reported as lost and had it deactivated. The bank accounts I'd set up for Tyler and Grace's college funds, I changed the beneficiary access, removing Brandon and Catherine's names. The money would still be there for my grandchildren when they turned 18, but their parents could no longer touch it or even see the balance. I called my accountant, woke him up, didn't care, and told him to cease all payments to or on behalf of Brandon and Catherine Caldwell, effective immediately. He asked if I was sure. I told him I'd never been more certain of anything in my life. Then I called my attorney, left a message on her emergency line explaining the situation, asking her to draft documents formalizing the end of all financial support and protecting me legally from any claims Brandon might try to make about verbal agreements or implied contracts. By midnight it was done. Every thread of support I'd quietly maintained for 5 years was cut. Clean, complete, irreversible. I felt lighter than I had in months, years, maybe. The money would still be in my account when their mortgage payment came due in 8 days, but it wouldn't be in theirs. The automatic payment to their car loan company wouldn't process. The utilities, the insurance, the property taxes, all of it would bounce, fail, go unpaid. And Brandon, who had no idea that any of these payments were coming from me, who genuinely believed his own salary covered their lifestyle, would wake up one morning very soon to a world that made no sense. I went to bed that night and slept better than I had in weeks. Thanksgiving morning arrived. I woke up early, made breakfast, and sat on my back porch with coffee and the newspaper. The November air was crisp and cool, the sky clear and blue. It was beautiful, peaceful. I wondered what Catherine and Brandon's house looked like right now. Were they up early, preparing the turkey? Were Tyler and Grace excited, running around in their pajamas? Was Brandon's mother already there, drinking mimosas and talking too loudly? Was anyone wondering where I was? Was Catherine feeling guilty? Was she defending Brandon's decision to her mother-in-law, or was she silently wishing I was there? I'd never know, and that was okay. I spent the day doing exactly what I wanted. Watched old movies, read a book I'd been meaning to get to, took a long walk around my property, made myself a simple but satisfying meal, nothing fancy, just roast chicken and vegetables and a glass of good wine. It was, honestly, one of the most peaceful Thanksgivings I'd had in years. But while I was enjoying my quiet day, Brandon's world was beginning to crack. He just didn't know it yet. See, the mortgage payment had been due the week before Thanksgiving. When it didn't process, the mortgage company had sent a courtesy notification to the email address on file, my email address, which I'd set up years ago when I started making the payments. Brandon and Catherine never saw it. The car payment had bounced on Tuesday. Both cars, his BMW and her sedan, were financed through the same company, and both payments failed. The company sent texts and emails to the phone numbers on file, also mine, also changed years ago to make the arrangement simpler. The utility companies, the insurance companies, the credit card companies, they all sent notifications, all to me, all ignored. Brandon sailed through Thanksgiving completely unaware that his financial life was imploding. But Friday morning, reality came knocking. Brandon woke up to 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. The first was from the BMW dealership's finance company. Your account is past due. Payment required immediately to avoid repossession proceedings. Then the mortgage company, payment failure. Your mortgage payment of $3,200 has been rejected. Please contact us immediately. Then the utility company, Payment method on file declined. Service interruption scheduled for 11/27 if balance remains unpaid. Then his credit card company, payment failure. Your account is now past due. Late fees applied. Brandon sat up in bed, staring at his phone in confusion. Catherine was still sleeping beside him. The kids were still asleep down the hall. The house was quiet, except for the endless buzzing and pinging of his phone as more notifications rolled in. He started making calls. First to the mortgage company. There must be a mistake. My payment is automatic. It's been automatic for 5 years. Sir, the payment didn't process. The account it was connected to appears to be closed or restricted. That's impossible. Let me give you my account information. Sir, the account on file isn't yours. It's registered to an Austin Pierce. Are you Austin Pierce? Brandon's blood went cold. No, that's my father-in-law. Then you'll need to speak with him about the payment or provide alternative payment information. Your account is now in arrears. Brandon hung up, tried the car finance company, same story, tried the utility company, same story. Every single bill, every single automatic payment that had kept his life running smoothly for 5 years was connected to my accounts, and now those payments had stopped. He didn't understand, couldn't process it. Why would I be paying for all of this? He'd never asked me to, never discussed it with me. Had I been doing this without telling him, without telling Catherine? He woke her up, frantic, showing her the messages. Catherine's face went white as she read them. Did you know about this? Brandon demanded. Did you know your father was paying for all of this? I knew he helped sometimes. I didn't realize it was everything. I didn't realize. Everything, Catherine. He's been paying our mortgage, our car payments. What else? What else has he been paying for that I don't know about? Catherine started crying. I don't know, he'd help when we needed it. He never made a big deal about it. I thought maybe he was just contributing a little here and there. I didn't realize. You didn't realize we've been living off your father's money for 5 years. Brandon's voice was rising now, panic giving way to anger. You didn't think to mention this to me, that nothing we have is actually ours. That's not fair. You never asked. You just assumed everything was fine. They fought, screamed at each other, blamed each other, while their children listened from down the hall, frightened and confused by their parents' sudden rage. Brandon tried calling me, once, twice, 10 times. I didn't answer, sent him straight to voicemail every time. He left messages. The first few were confused, asking me to call him back, saying there was an emergency with the accounts. Then they got angry, demanding, accusing me of sabotaging them, of abandoning my own daughter, of being vindictive and petty. Then they got desperate, pleading, promising we could talk, could work this out, begging me to just call him back, to explain what was happening. I deleted every message without listening to them in full. I didn't need to hear his panic, didn't need to hear his excuses or his promises or his pathetic attempts to manipulate me into resuming the support. By Friday afternoon, Brandon understood the scope of the disaster. Without my monthly contributions, they couldn't make their mortgage payment, couldn't make their car payments, couldn't pay the utilities that were about to be shut off, couldn't cover the property taxes due in 3 weeks, couldn't maintain any of the lifestyle he'd spent 5 years bragging about. His salary, which he'd always thought was covering everything, barely covered food, gas, and basic necessities. Without my support, they were underwater immediately, negative, drowning. And there was no quick solution, no emergency fund to tap into because I'd been the emergency fund. No savings to fall back on because they'd never needed savings. I'd always been there, quietly catching them before they could fall. Brandon tried to take out a personal loan, got denied. His debt-to-income ratio was too high, his credit score not good enough for the amount he needed. Tried to borrow from friends, got sympathetic responses but no money. Tried to ask his mother. She laughed at him, told him to figure it out like an adult. By Friday evening, he was panicking, really, truly panicking. Catherine tried calling me, left tearful voicemails begging me to pick up, to please talk to her, to let her explain. She knew what Brandon had done was wrong. She understood why I was hurt. But please, Daddy, please don't do this. The kids needed stability. They needed their home, please. I listened to one of her messages all the way through, heard my daughter sobbing, begging, breaking down. And it hurt. God, it hurt so much. But I didn't call her back. Because this wasn't punishment. This was reality. This was the natural consequence of taking someone for granted, of mistaking generosity for obligation, of believing that respect was optional. I had been holding their world together with my bare hands for 5 years, and they'd treated me like I was nothing, like I was disposable, like I didn't matter. Now they were learning what it felt like when those hands let go. Saturday, Brandon showed up at my house. I saw him through the window, pulling into my driveway in his BMW, the BMW that would be repossessed within the week if he didn't come up with $3,800. He looked terrible, hadn't shaved, dark circles under his eyes, suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. He rang the doorbell, knocked, rang again. I sat in my living room and didn't move. Austin, Austin, I know you're in there. I see your car. Please just open the door. We need to talk. I sipped my coffee and read my book. Damn it, Austin, this is childish. You're punishing Catherine and the kids because you're upset with me. Is that what you want, to hurt your own daughter, your grandchildren? Still didn't move. Fine, fine, you want me to apologize? I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I handled it badly. I should have talked to you differently. Is that what you want to hear? I'm saying it. Now please, please open the door. His voice was cracking now, desperation bleeding through. We're going to lose the house, Austin. Do you understand that? Your daughter and grandchildren are going to lose their home. Because of you, because you're too proud to have a conversation. Is that the man you want to be? Is that the grandfather you want to be? I closed my book, stood up, walked to the front door. Brandon saw movement through the frosted glass and stopped mid-rant. I opened the door, looked at him, said nothing. Austin, thank God. Listen, we need to leave, I said quietly. He blinked. What? Leave my property, now. Austin, please, just listen for 1 minute. You told me I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving, that I should stay away, that I wasn't close family, so I'm extending you the same courtesy. You're not welcome here, stay away. That's not, I didn't mean, you're taking this out of context. Brandon, I said, my voice still calm, still quiet, but with steel underneath, you are standing on my property at my door because your life is falling apart. And you want to know why it's falling apart. Because you built it on a foundation you didn't own, didn't appreciate, and couldn't maintain on your own. I was that foundation, and I've removed myself. So this is revenge. This is you getting even. No, this is me respecting your boundaries. You wanted me out of your Thanksgiving, out of your life, except when it was convenient. Now I'm out, completely, permanently. What about Catherine? What about Tyler and Grace? My daughter knows how to reach me. When she's ready to have a real conversation, not one where she sends you to negotiate on her behalf, my door is open. As for my grandchildren, they're always welcome here. Always, but they come without you. This is insane. You're destroying our family because I made one mistake. One mistake, I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Brandon, you've been disrespecting me for years. You've treated me like an inconvenient stranger, an annoyance, someone to be managed and controlled and shut out. The Thanksgiving thing wasn't a mistake. It was a culmination. It was you finally saying out loud what your actions have been saying all along, that I don't matter, that my only value is the money I provide, that I'm useful but not wanted. That's not true. Then where were you when your wife needed you to defend me? Where were you every time you made a rule about when I could visit, or what I could bring, or how I should behave in the house I was paying for? Where was your respect, your gratitude, your basic human decency? Brandon had no answer, just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to leave. You're going to figure out how to pay your own bills, maintain your own life, and provide for your own family, like the successful man you've been pretending to be. And you're going to do it without me, without my money, without my help, because I'm done. Austin, please. I said leave. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw it finally register. The reality, the finality, the understanding that no amount of begging or manipulation or guilt-tripping was going to change my mind. He turned and walked back to his car, shoulders slumped, defeated. I watched him drive away, then closed my door and went back to my coffee and my book. Over the next several days, the collapse continued. Brandon tried to negotiate payment plans with the mortgage company, the car finance company, the credit card companies. Some worked with him, some didn't. The BMW got repossessed on Tuesday. Catherine's car would follow by the end of the week unless they came up with over $4,000 immediately. They couldn't. Brandon put both cars on sale through Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, desperately trying to sell Catherine's car before it got repossessed too, hoping to at least get something out of it. No buyers materialized fast enough. The utility company sent a final notice. Without payment by Friday, their electricity and water would be shut off. Brandon called his boss, asked for an advance on his salary, got denied, company policy, asked some colleagues for loans, got awkward excuses. Catherine went to her principal, explained there was a family emergency, asked about taking out a loan against her pension. The principal gently explained that wasn't possible, but offered to connect her with a financial counselor. The house, the beautiful four-bedroom colonial they'd bragged about to everyone they knew, went into pre-foreclosure. They had 30 days to get current on the mortgage or start the eviction process. 30 days to come up with over $3,000, plus another $3,000 for the next month's payment, plus all the other bills piling up, plus money for food, gas, and basic necessities. Impossible, completely impossible on their combined salaries, especially with no savings, no safety net, no one to turn to. Catherine finally called me on the 9th day after Thanksgiving. I answered this time. Daddy, her voice was small, broken. Hello, Catherine. Can we talk, please? Can I come see you? Of course, you're always welcome here. Can I bring the kids? Always. There was a pause, then quietly, just us. Brandon isn't coming. Okay. She showed up an hour later with Tyler and Grace. The kids ran to me the moment they got out of the car, hugging me, telling me they'd missed me, asking why I hadn't come over for Thanksgiving. Grandpa had other plans this year, I said, kissing their heads, but I'm here now. Catherine looked worse than Brandon had, thick and exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. She'd been crying. I could see the red rims around her eyes, the puffiness in her face. I sent the kids to the backyard to play, then brought Catherine inside and made her tea. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd eaten countless meals with her as a child, where I'd helped her with homework and listened to her teenage dramas and celebrated her college acceptance. I'm so sorry, Daddy. The words came out in a rush. I'm so sorry. I should have defended you. I should have stood up to Brandon. I should have told him he was wrong, that your family, that you're more important than his pride or his stupid mother or any of it. I was a coward. I failed you, and I'm so sorry. I reached across the table and took her hand. Catherine, I'm not angry with you. I'm disappointed, yes, I'm hurt, but I'm not angry. You should be furious. Brandon was horrible to you, and I let it happen. I made excuses for him. I chose keeping the peace over standing up for you, and that was wrong. Why did you do it? I asked gently. Why didn't you defend me? She was quiet for a long time. Then I was scared. Brandon can be difficult. When he makes a decision, he doesn't like being challenged. And I've learned over the years that it's easier to just go along, to smooth things over, to be the peacekeeper. I didn't realize I was doing it at your expense. I didn't realize how much I'd let him control. Does he know you're here? Yes, we fought about it. He said I was betraying him by coming to you, that you'd turn me against him, that you'd use this to drive a wedge between us. She laughed, but it was a sad, hollow sound, as if there wasn't already a wedge, as if our marriage wasn't already broken. What do you want, sweetheart? I want to fix this. I want my family back, my whole family, including you. I want the kids to have their grandfather. I want everything to go back to how it was before, but I know that's not possible. I know I can't ask you to just forgive everything and go back to helping us financially. I know we don't deserve that, but I don't know how to fix any of this. I took a deep breath. Catherine, I love you. I love those kids in my backyard more than anything in this world. But I will not go back to how things were. I will not let myself be disrespected, dismissed, and excluded while simultaneously being expected to fund your life. That's not love. That's not family. That's being used. I know you're right. You're completely right. If you want to fix this, if you truly want to repair our relationship, then you need to make some hard choices. You need to decide who you're going to stand with, what kind of marriage you want, what kind of example you want to set for your children about respect and boundaries and family. I don't know if my marriage can survive this, she whispered. Brandon is talking about divorce. He blames you for everything, for the money stopping, for the bills piling up, for the stress. He can't see that it's his own actions that caused this. He can't take responsibility, and I don't know if I can stay with someone who can't take responsibility. That's your decision to make, sweetheart, not mine. But I'll support you no matter what you choose, as long as you're making the choice for the right reasons, for yourself and your kids, not because you're scared or trying to keep the peace. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. The kids can stay here as much as you need them to, I continued. If things get worse with the house, with the finances, you and the kids can move in here. There's plenty of room. You'd have to share a bathroom, but we'd make it work. But Brandon is not welcome here. Not now, maybe not ever. That's my boundary. I understand. As for money, I'm not resuming the support. Not to Brandon, not to both of you as a couple, but I will make sure Tyler and Grace have what they need. School supplies, clothes, activities. Their college funds are protected. They'll be taken care of. And if you separate from Brandon, if you need help getting on your feet independently, we can talk about that. But I won't fund a lifestyle that's built on disrespecting me. That's more than fair. That's more than I deserve. You deserve to be treated with love and respect by your husband, Catherine. You deserve a partner who values family, who appreciates generosity, who understands that relationships aren't transactions. If Brandon isn't that person, then you deserve better, and so do those kids. We talked for another hour, about her marriage, about her fears, about what the future might look like if she left Brandon, if she tried to make it on her own with 2 kids and a teacher's salary. I assured her she wouldn't be alone, that I'd help her find an affordable place, that I'd be there for the kids, that we'd figure it out together. When Tyler and Grace came back inside, we had cookies and milk, and I read them stories, and for a little while everything felt almost normal. As Catherine was leaving, she hugged me tight. I love you, Daddy. I'm going to make this right, I promise. I love you too, sweetheart, and I know you will. The next 2 weeks were chaos for Brandon and Catherine. The house was officially in foreclosure. They had to move out by December 15th. Brandon found a 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town, all he could afford on his salary. Catherine put most of their furniture in storage and packed up the kids' essentials. Brandon's mother, who'd been so happy to attend Thanksgiving at their beautiful house, was nowhere to be found now that they needed help. Catherine filed for separation 3 days after visiting me. Brandon tried to contest it, tried to convince her they could work through this, but she was done. Done with his excuses, done with his inability to take responsibility, done with the man he'd become, or maybe the man he'd always been. The divorce would be messy. There'd be custody battles and asset division and all the painful logistics of untangling a 7-year marriage. But Catherine was firm. She was moving forward, moving out, taking the kids, and starting over. I helped her find a rental house, a modest 3-bedroom about 10 minutes from my place. I co-signed the lease since her credit was damaged from the financial collapse. I paid the deposit and first month's rent as a fresh start gift. I helped her move. Brandon sent me one final text message. I hope you're happy. You destroyed my marriage. You destroyed my family. I hope it was worth it to prove your point. I didn't respond. Because I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd simply stopped holding together something that was broken from the beginning. Christmas morning, Catherine and the kids came to my house. We opened presents, practical things mostly, since Catherine was being careful with money now, budgeting and planning in ways she never had to before. The kids got books and games and sensible winter clothes. Catherine got a new laptop for lesson planning and a spa gift certificate because she looked like she could use some self-care. I got hugs from my grandchildren, handmade cards telling me I was the best grandpa in the world, and a framed photo of the three of them that Catherine had taken at a park, all of them smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in months. We made breakfast together, watched Christmas movies, played board games. Tyler beat me at checkers 3 times and was insufferably proud. Grace fell asleep on my lap during the afternoon movie, her little hand curled around my finger. It was perfect, simple and small and perfect. Around sunset, as Catherine was getting ready to take the kids home, she pulled me aside. Thank you, Daddy, for everything, for holding the boundary, for forcing me to see clearly, for being there when we needed you most. I know the last month has been hard, but it's been necessary. Brandon and I never would have changed if you just kept enabling us. I never would have found my strength if I hadn't been forced to stand on my own. You've always had that strength, sweetheart. You just forgot it was there. Well, I remember now, and I promise I'll never forget again. After they left, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine and watched the sun set over my property. I thought about Brandon, probably alone in his small apartment, angry and bitter, and blaming everyone but himself for how his life had turned out. I thought about the house I'd paid for, now empty and foreclosed, a monument to what happens when pride eclipses gratitude. I thought about the 7 years I'd spent quietly supporting a family that took me for granted, and the painful lesson it took to finally stop. But mostly I thought about Catherine and Tyler and Grace, and how we'd all come through this damaged but intact, broken but healing, ready to build something new. Something real. Something built on respect and honesty and genuine love, instead of money and secrets and unspoken resentments. Did I regret cutting off the support? No. Did I regret the pain it caused my daughter and grandchildren? Of course. But sometimes pain is necessary. Sometimes things have to break completely before they can be rebuilt correctly. Brandon called me weak for walking away from Thanksgiving without a fight, but he didn't understand that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let go. Let someone experience the consequences of their choices. Let the illusion shatter so reality can finally be seen. He thought I was punishing him, and maybe part of me was, but mostly I was just refusing to be invisible anymore. Refusing to be the foundation that everyone stood on but nobody acknowledged. I was choosing myself, my dignity, my worth. And in doing so, I'd given Catherine the chance to do the same. Brandon lost his house, his cars, his lifestyle, his marriage, everything he'd taken for granted, everything he'd believed was his by right. But he never lost any of it overnight. He lost it the moment he decided my presence at Thanksgiving was negotiable, the moment he looked at me and saw an inconvenience instead of family, the moment he chose his pride over respect. The collapse just took a little while to catch up. I'm 68 years old. I've built a good life through hard work and sacrifice. I've raised a daughter who's learned to stand on her own. I have grandchildren who know they're loved unconditionally. I have a home that's mine, free and clear, filled with peace instead of resentment. And I have boundaries, clear, firm, non-negotiable boundaries about how I expect to be treated. Brandon learned too late that generosity isn't weakness. that silence isn't consent, that the person quietly holding everything together is the one you should respect most. He learned that you can't build a life on someone else's foundation and then kick them out when it's convenient. Because eventually, that foundation walks away. And when it does, everything comes crashing down. If this story resonates well with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to be notified when we post new videos. If you were to be in my shoes, would you have done exactly what I did, or you would have done something else? I'll be waiting in the comments for your answers.